online.
So you say, yeah. There's always a little bit of time delay too. So where's the refresh thing? Oh, here. Oh, live, here we go. Hey, there we go. That is not very clear.
Let me wipe off my camera. Maybe that'll help. We're good.
It looks much better on his screen than on yours. You're the one that's washed out for some reason.
Yeah.
His looks okay.
Well, it's just,
It's a piece of shit PC.
yeah.
Loaded with viruses. Shock.
Come on. I'm kidding, I had to take the shot twice to have them clear out everything when I first got it. I have a new wireless router, Comcast. I don't know if it's just, seems to be just as good.
We just start asking questions.
If you have questions to ask, that'd probably be a good thing to do.
Okay. So you were talking before about different perceptions that one notices with the yoga of radiant perception. Yeah. There's a difference between coarse perceptions and subtle perceptions, right? So like I can notice a flavor or a texture that I'm feeling or something like that, but then it's different, like noticing some energy and what seems to be my energetic body or inside me. But is it the same sort of way of attending?
Same, exactly the same. The nature, what I call radiance, which is just it's a metaphor. It doesn't actually exist. It's a euphemism for the medium of what is present. And there's only one thing present, which I call, again, radiance. Simply to have a label for it, a tag for it. And the nature of radiance is to show up with an infinitely broad degree of textures and densities and what have you. So anything that appears in experience, no matter how subtle or how coarse, is just an aspect of what radiance can show up as. So yeah, it's all the same.
But it's core sensation? Like
No better, no worse. The point is to, it's not, you're not like building up a catalog of noticing, this, that, and the other, and differentiating, so you have a whole repertoire of different modes. The point is to notice the powerful aspect of radiance is that it is very weird, which or as I put it, transcendental. It's not what you think it is. So anything whatsoever that appears is more and other than you're used to thinking of it as being. And it is that explicitly. So the trick is to let yourself notice that explicitness, the actual experience in real time, and notice the way what is present specifically, and the way in which it is present, it transcends what you're used to thinking of it as being. And it doesn't matter where you're looking. I would say perhaps it may be expedient to start with really sort of coarse explicits like sensory experience or something, but that's completely arbitrary.
okay, but you did mention that if you feel some sort of investment in what you're noticing, then
Right.
that's more difficult to.
It may be liable to trip you up because the investment may tend to sort of ossify your interpretive framework, and interpretive frameworks in general are the biggest impediment to noticing radiance. Interpretive frameworks is when you think something is something particular, or is something particular in a certain way. And in actuality, experience is way beyond anything you can think that it is. And the way in which it is that is way beyond any way that you can think that it is. And so the point is to notice that. So interpretive frameworks are always, in a certain sense, what you're sort of trying to get around. But it's not that simple, because it's not an either or. Interpretive frameworks are also radiance. So it's all very slippery and very strange. Like the other night, Mahesh, you were talking about trying to not see the microphone.
Right,
And it's not about not seeing the microphone. It's about seeing that the microphone is more than just a microphone.
right.
It's an experience. And all of a sudden, it doesn't negate its microphoneness, but microphone is just such an infinitesimal category of what it is, present experience.
It was really hard for a while to see anything but.
Yeah, but again, turning it into an either or is playing into the interpretive frameworks. Because it's not an either or, it's a both and. The very nature of radiance is intrinsically both and. Ever it seems to be, it is that, but it's more than that. And it's other than that. Without negating or canceling out what it seems to be. So like the myth of realization is, you become a realized being, and all of a sudden, you're seeing a field of pure light, and you no longer have a body, and Jesus is playing poker with you, and the whole deal, which is really true in any simple sense. You're actually,
I like that, there's no.
actually your personality and your life and your normalcy may seem to persist experientially, but that's not all. It's like one of those game shows. There's more. You can also get what's behind curtain number 2 and curtain number 3, and there's a bonus. So it's so it doesn't negate or cancel out. Like the microphone doesn't get erased or canceled out or negated. It just turns out that a microphoneness is the tiniest infinitesimal aspect of what's present, without being negated, without being canceled, without being erased.
I'm using that when I have contraction in my body. I start beginning to say, wait, that's not the only thing that's present.
Exactly. Look at the contraction, and you'll discover it's an unspeakable, unthinkable weirdness.
Mhm.
I mean, how can it be contraction? Of what? Where? And all of a sudden, you look at it in those terms and it's just a doorway into absolute weirdness. Experience is inconceivably weird. How could experience be happening? How could light be appearing? I mean, it's I mean, we take it for granted and we're numb to it and we just think of it as same old. But how could light be appearing? I mean, Jesus Christ. I'll take 3 cards.
Like give us some great swear words, that Jesus guy.
I know. Right? Where would it be without him? Buddha just doesn't have the same sting. Buddha.
Lord Buddha.
K-words.
But when you say it, there's a certain edge. See?
You say like
Whatever you do, don't play poker with you.
Jesus manifests cards and Buddha cheats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I sell Chan books and people say weird things and I'm tempted to ask you about them. So let's see if I can maybe this is a pretty long series of ideas. You have, for example, said that don't worry, be happy. That's one of your,
I may have said that at one point.
that,
I can't claim to have originated it. I may have passed it along.
there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Right. So your website says that. Your website says the world doesn't exist. So lighten up,
Right.
That's a quote from your friends.
Right.
So I read in this book, and this Lama somebody says, if anything really bad happens, or good happens, or whatever, as soon as the shock of it is over, just put a smile back on your face and just keep going. Because whatever it is probably didn't happen anyway. And he furthermore advises you that if you mope around in negative thoughts, this will simply invite the fruition of negative karma. That you can draw negative karma to yourself if you sit around moping about things.
Well, I would say the moping about things is a negative karma.
Yeah.
So it's the moping is the fulfillment of the attracting of negative karma. I mean, it's a done deal if you're moping.
But what about my kid just got run by a car, but who cares? I'll just go to the party anyway. What about that part?
In Dzogchen and in reality, nothing is ever gained, nothing is ever lost. The apparent entities and circumstances and the apparent interaction of these entities and circumstances that we experience as cause and effect and chains of events and so on and so forth, in actuality aren't happening. They're not.
Arrested for witchcraft, and they're hauling me off, and they're going to hang me or burn me or something.
Right, they hang you and burn you, and then you're dead.
Right.
Nothing's happened.
Nothing's happening. Okay.
It's a good way to understand that is like a dream. The dream is not happening, but it's not actually happening because there's no event in the dream other than dreaming. So there can be apparent events of all sorts of elaborate interactions and different entities coming and going and successes and failings and pain and pleasure and all of this. But in actuality, when you wake up, you say, oh, there was this dream, nothing happened. There was nothing there to happen. It was just me dreaming. The dreaming was the sole quality and event that was there. And I think that's a very concise way of understanding the issue that you're talking about. In a very fundamental sense, exactly the same condition applies here. What's actually happening here, a zero-sum game, nothing is being gained, nothing is being lost. The nature of what's happening here is such that it may seem to present as all sorts of apparition, which can be very elaborate, but the apparition consists only of apparition, not of actual event, or not as chains of event, not as causality. Which is not, you can. There's no implication there. It's not like you're supposed to be an asshole, and someone gets punched in the face and you burst out laughing. You're free to.
I've cultivated indifference, and I don't really worry about gain and loss all that much, but everybody else seems to.
Well, people do what they do. They're free to. But the point is that one can discover for oneself the way that this is, and then one can draw one's own conclusions. So it's not a matter of some philosophy or conceptual map that one should adhere to. Yeah, it's, you know, what is happening here is not actually analyzable, and it's not actually presentable as a narration, and yet it is knowable. So my advice would be, if you're interested, come to know it, and then you'll answer to all of these questions for yourself without needing to resort to philosophy.
Spouting nonsense about just as well as anybody else.
That's right.
Right.
Hang out at Shingle and get the $0.
How is it again that there's no causality?
There's no causality because there's no entities, so there's no interaction.
No objects, no events.
Well, also, there's just no timeline, so.
Yeah, there's no
how can you
space and no
connect-
time, so
How can you connect anything to anything?
Plus.
That's science.
And the interconnectedness of things makes, what would be the cause to what result? All results are causes and all causes are results. And
think of
you
it.
spin yourself around, pretty soon you realize that there's,
But again,
Can't have that.
think of a dream. In a dream, there can seem to be very elaborate events. You know, you're running away from someone who's chasing you with an arrow, and they shoot the arrow, and the arrow hits you in the back, and oh my God, you're going to die. So there's a supposed chain of events. But in actuality, there is no arrow, there's no chasing, there's no shooting, and there's no dying, because it's a dream. Nothing is actually there, even though it looks as if something is there. And this is basically the condition here.
And it doesn't explain the refrigerator.
Yeah. What's up with that refrigerator?
yeah, really.
But
When you see this, it's weird, but you'll see the lack of causality. You'll be saying, holy cow. But just haven't got quite
but we act as if there's causality all the time.
You
right?
may.
We act as if there's time, like you're speaking sentences that have a grammatic.
You're very kind.
You just haven't listened long
Just
enough.
the way
Yeah, it seems that way.
it's
And again, it's not a simple either or. It's not like, chains of events are negated by what this actually is. The nature of what this is that because of its nature, it presents as if, in aspects of itself, present as if there were entities and interactions and chains of events and cause and effect and all that. And that's all fine. But that's not what's really happening. It's not a matter of negating that and going to something else. It's a matter of the something else is doing all of that. And the way that something else is and the way it functions is utterly beyond the way the apparitions function in terms of entities and causality and so on and so forth. But it's not an either or, our human logic is so deeply grounded, and well, if it's not this way, then it must be that way. And if it's that way, then it's not this way. And this isn't like that. This is a very weird both and, with inconceivable paradoxical juxtapositions and inclusions. There's no way to wrap your head around. But who says it needs to make sense? Who says you need to wrap your head around it?
Okay, so maybe if I don't, we could say that I have a more narrow perception and I have like
Don't worry about qualifying it. Don't worry about a conceptual overview. Just be very simply with the presence of any experience. and feel what's there, and feel the way it's there, and feel the way in which is more than you're used to thinking it is.
Okay.
Not just in terms of objects, but in terms of experience, perception of objects. I mean, consciousness is present. What's up with that? You know, perception is present. What's up with that? You know, how does that happen? How does light appear in consciousness? I mean, all these kinds of things, and not as a linear narration where you're asking these questions, but just feel that actuality and feel the way in which it is what it is, and just feel what is it, feel what's there.
Okay.
You know, the real thing you're exploring is what is experience, and experience is inconceivable.
And it's not to articulate or show.
You can never articulate. It can't. What it is can't be articulated.
I want to make like a comparison and say like I don't know if this follows or this works at all, but like it seems like a trained artist who has a lot of experience can see a lot of fine detail in there.
Sure.
So like a musician that has the ability to articulate all sorts of tones and pitch and whatever, and make it a certain vocabulary. But it's not like that in terms of.
Well, it is like that to the extent that as you become more sensitive, you will have a greater appreciation of the range of what it is and the way that it is that, which you may be able to play with or communicate or whatever, to whatever degree you can. But ultimately, what this is completely unanalyzable, unresolvable. So that's not the point. Whether or not you can do that kind of thing is irrelevant. I mean, obviously, you will be able to some extent. You can already talk about things, and the things you can talk about are radiance. So you're already talking about radiance. Everything you talk about exists because it is radiance, and all this is you're basically engaging in this whole program to be with your experience of your actuality in a more subtle, intimate way, and notice aspects of it that you're not noticing now. You know, incrementally or in whatever way you can. That's all. And you already notice a lot about what's here, so you already have your foot in the door. It's not everything you know is radiance, is noticing. Expert.
Okay.
So it's just a matter, you're just like broadening, you're refining your skills. You know, it's again, well, you've got what you've got, you know what you know, you have the subtlety and the sensitivity you have, but there's more. And so you're just exploring that for yourself. Oh, there's more, interesting. So what would that be? And ask yourself that question and you can see.
But it's enough to ask that question. You don't have to find an answer.
Oh no, there's no answer.
I mean, it's just asking the question is already all there is.
Yeah, once you discover the trick that there's more, and you see for yourself that there actually is more, then that's it. You're off and running. And you get it, and then you get to the end. No, now I've got it. I know it all. It's not like that. That there's more is the powerful fact, because the more is infinite. It's bottomless. It's never ending, and so that everything is the presence of never-ending infinity is the point. Again, the specificity that it presents as. That is also never-ending infinity and is a contact point into a more explicit, perhaps, never-ending infinity. And you're just letting yourself notice that, letting yourself access that explicitly rather than have it be the case, but you're not noticing it because you're focusing on this and that explicit aspect because you're used to doing that.
And there are added capacities that get acquired? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of cities. You'll have loads of fun.
Okay.
You'll be able to read people's minds and know the future, and you'll be much better at manipulating
And
suckers,
cheat at cards.
cheetah cards.
And you won't care at all.
So you can play with Jesus.
You're doing a cheat with
You'll be
Jesus.
able to.
Yeah, Jesus
Now
is
you
gonna
wanna
every time.
wanna cheat Jesus.
Turn water.
More fun that way.
Yeah, of course there's added capacities, because the nature of what you discovered this is has its own inherent modes of engagement. And as you become aware of those modes, you become aware that you are there because you're just, all you're really becoming aware of is what you are, because you are this. And you are your experiential field. And so the more you discover the subtler aspects of your experiential field that you're heretofore less aware of, the more you get to participate explicitly in those modes, which aren't exclusively passive necessarily. It's not like it's all perceptive. It may also be modes of engagement, modes of you know. I mean, right away you discover you can read auras and, you know, feel people's minds and things like that. But you already know how to do that. Can you feel auras?
Not so much at all.
Okay.
No.
Pick two people across the room and feel what they feel how to do, and don't worry about trying to concretize it. Just feel that they have a flavor.
Yeah.
And notice the way in which there's different flavors. You know, it's not, you can't say what that is. You can't necessarily put it in the words, but you're feeling subtle energy when you do that. You know, you walk into a room and someone you've never met before, or you haven't talked to, you get a hit on them, whatever. It may not be comprehensive, it may not be detailed, and who knows, but you get something, right? And then you check out someone else and you get something else. That's what an aura is. That's subtle energy. So right there, that's very powerful noticing. You could use that as your yoga practice alone, and then start doing that with inanimate objects. Assume that inanimate objects have different auras, different energy flavors, and you can go start feeling what's their aura, what do they feel like? And you'll just, you know, without trying to concretize it, don't try and say, well, wait a minute, what is this? What am I doing? Just do it anyway. Just pretend you can do it, and then just do it. And let yourself experience that, and just check it out, you know, for a while. And all of a sudden you're in a different mode than you're perhaps used to being in. That is somehow actual. It's concrete, it's present, without worrying what it is. And then you'll notice, well, you know, it's actual and present, and it is what it is, but I can't say what it is. But then you look at something that you're used to saying what it is, and you can't say what that is either. You know, it's like I'm seeing this lamp across the room, and I can't say what's happening when I see that lamp. Oh, it's the presence of light on my retinas, you know, firing the nerve cells. It's the actuality, the presence of light in experience is like, what? I mean, how weird is that? You know, it's inconceivable. It's completely undescribable, unthinkable. And yet it's explicit. It's completely actual and obvious. Just like, you know, feeling someone's aura is. And likewise, you can't say what it is.
Yeah, I guess part of why I don't do that is, or don't do that so much is I presume that I'm projecting so much on others and making
Sure.
judgments.
Absolutely, projecting is a part of radiance too. So you explore that. I mean, all these cycles, all that is part and parcel of the way radiance works. Of course, what else would it be? So that's always in the mix. So that's part of what you're noticing. This, you know, this multidimensionality. And yet, there may or may not be projection, but there's also flavors. You know, you can feel flavors from people, and you may also be projecting with the people, and you can learn to, well, projecting has a slightly different texture or flavor than feeling flavor, maybe, but you just play with it for yourself, and you just explore it. You set it as a riddle, like, so what's up with this? You know, without expecting to resolve it, without expecting to get an answer. Oh, it's projection, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. Just leave it open. Leave it open in terms of explore it without needing to get a result. Think of it as like a 5-year research project. So don't worry about what your results are for 5 years. And then if you're doing it well, 5 years, you won't give a shit. Told you to call me.
Disturbing the bees.
I never get any texts these things because
Texting our questions to 555 Peter Brown.
What about things like using a pendulum to make decisions?
What about it?
Well, so there's the normal way that I would oftentimes make decisions in the past, where I would list all of the reasons, and then I would deliberate back and forth, and I would have all this anxiety about what would be the right one. so now I use the pendulum a lot of times,
Right.
and to make my decisions, because I feel like that's more, I don't know, it comes from a deeper place.
There's no difference.
There's no difference.
Where does thought come from? Where does agonizing come from? Where does indecision come from? What's doing them? What are they made of? So before you've considered a decision, before you've even asked a question, here you are sitting hunky-dory and there's no question, and all of a sudden there's a question. And then you think about it. Where did the thought come from to think about the question that came from you don't know where? And so then you do your pendulum, and the pendulum starts moving. Where does that come from? What's the difference? It's just different forms appearing mysteriously, with exactly the same mystery, exactly the same apparent process, with exactly the same unfathomable result. Did I make a good decision or not? I don't know. Ask me in.
So it doesn't matter how I make decisions or what I decide.
Of course not. How could it matter?
Just wait till they come for it.
Because you don't know what's going to. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what anything means. So how can you possibly make a meaningful decision? Which isn't to argue against, figuring out all you can and listing the factors that you're aware of and rationalizing the whole deal as best you can. That's fine. If you want to, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not foolproof. The actual flow of events is completely unfathomable, inscrutable, and which always deviates from what you expect. Right? What happens is always different than what you expect. Even if it's sort of almost pretty much what I expected, sort of almost pretty much is a euphemism for completely different.
For not, right?
I came here tonight with the expectation I was going to be sitting in this room having a talk with a bunch of people, most of whom I expected to have seen before. Now, that's a very loose description, and I can say, given the looseness of that description, yeah, that's what's happening. But if I say exactly what's happening, experience is made of specifics. It's not made of generalities. Exactly what I'm experiencing, I had absolutely no idea the configurations of life, the exact sounds and the sequence they occur in, the exact movements. I mean, it's all completely new, completely unexpected, completely surprising. And event is always that. Right? You can't, even if you know generally what's going to happen, you don't know what's actually going to happen because actuality is made of specifics.
Yeah, I was sure Irma was going to be on the couch.
See?
Yeah, I was thinking today that wanting is so strange because I don't really want anything that I want.
Of course not.
Because what you just whatever my conception of what I want is, but it's never that.
Wanting is, but everything is never that. Wanting is a mysterious, whatever that is completely inscrutable and unfathomable and not what you think it is. But so is everything else, so no surprise.
But taking a look at, for instance, wanting very carefully and introspectively, wanting, and you see that it's an urge, and then you follow it through to where does it come from and who's having it and all that, that can really free you up to see that the whole thing is quite nebulous. You didn't plan to want something. You didn't plan what specifically. And you, even after you feel a sense of want or an urge for something, you don't know what it is that you are receiving if you do.
Sure. Every stage of the chain of events is unfathomable mystery.
And it's the same thing
The
with
arising of it
decision.
is mystery. What it is when it's there is mystery. What it's doing is a mystery. Where it's going is a mystery, and the result is a mystery.
And you can do the same thing exploration with the notion of decision making. You feel the urge to decide something, but then it's two nebulous things or 3 or 10 that you're deciding from, and then you sense a sense of gravitating towards one thing or another. I mean, and the whole thing falls apart into a sense of flow in any case, and you recognize you're not deciding anything. And who is it that's deciding to begin with? That itself, if you explore, becomes this other nebulous thing of qualities that you go, well, what is it? What is this me thing? So yeah. It's a whole matter of exploration, if you're so lucky.
Endless weirdness.
Endless way.
Anything is endless weirdness if you look at what's actually there. That's all. That's good noticing for you. Yeah, Frank.
Speaking of endless weirdness, that's a good since I was a kid, I've had some kind of a relationship with the weather. It seems to never rain on me, but I came out here to California, and I noticed you guys are having a drought. A few days ago, I sent an email to my friends, and I said, I want to see if I can summon up some rain.
Oh, good. That was you.
Friends wrote back and said, thank you for the rain. That's great.
On behalf of Californians everywhere, I thank you.
Thank you for what? I didn't.
The
The
rain.
rain.
Oh, the rain.
Frank made the rain.
Send a rain email. Stick around. Why are you going?
How is
Why
it
didn't it come
great
earlier?
full of spiritual people?
Maybe
I
you
seem to
can
be the only
maybe you
one.
can send some remotely. But
I'm
you're the
the only
sole
one.
inhabitant of your universe, so that's why.
You know, I did this when I was in DC, some like last year. last winter actually, when it was snowing in DC, or it might have been winter before last actually. And it was terribly droughful here, there was no rain. And so what I did was I was sitting in DC and I summoned a bunch of rain which fell on California. And one of the storms was so potent that it went past Denver and Phoenix and actually hit DC. It fell as 2 feet of snow in DC. Coming out of the Pacific Ocean.
You're the man.
You don't know your own strength.
Am I
That's
completely-
right, really,
am I
you're sending
completely nuts, doctor, or what?
Yeah, I would say
Does
that's,
this show the mysterious aspect of human nature, or what is it?
it's wackadoodle.
That you can think all that is mysterious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel a little sad and disconnected because I really have no idea what any other human being thinks or feels because
Of course.
it seems like if this is a reality, it seems like there's a rule. No matter how psychic anybody is, it's not part of this reality or appropriate to know the inner experience of any other being.
Yeah, it's impossible to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not sad, because it would only be sad if it was possible. And since you never have and never will, and that's not a reality, then the only sadness is, wouldn't it be nice if, rather than, in other words, it's not a deprivation of anything or a loss of anything, because it's not an actuality that you could be deprived of or could lose.
Well, I'm losing intimacy.
No, you have total intimacy.
Absolutely.
You have as much intimacy as you've ever had. You have as much intimacy as is possible.
Yeah.
But all
I'm
intimacy,
saying I long for a reality in which I can have more intimacy with the other beings.
but you have absolute intimacy with other beings.
But
But
I have no idea of what the reality is.
Yeah, but you don't need to. That doesn't mean it's not intimate.
I don't know, it's definitely. No,
That's the nature of the beast.
I'm saying, Peter, I think there is a reality where it's different.
Well, go for it.
But this is my place now, so,
That's where you're
it's
at.
just the way it is. Yeah, because you can't use any word and know what anybody else means by that word. You can't even,
Right.
you don't even know what warm means. My warm might be their hot and my cool could be their freezing. There's no correlation. It's just
Exactly.
really
Yes.
vague things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't preclude intimacy.
Yeah.
Because the intimacy is in your own sense of experience. And so.
Intimacy is not with entities, because there are no entities.
What do you mean quality?
Yes.
Intimacy is with qualities, color, emotion, concepts. All of these are qualities, and there's unlimited intimacy with those. But there's no entity. So you project that there's other entities. There are no other entities. You're the sole entity that exists.
How can there be color if there isn't a color of anything?
What do you mean? I don't know how.
Didn't you just say color?
Yeah, color.
There has to be a something for there to be a color.
Color is an experience, though.
Color is, no, you have color in your
It's a
dream.
handkerchief, man.
Dana, in your dreams you can have color and there's nothing there. In your dreams you can have other beings and there's no one there.
That's sort of like it's kind of a boundary problem, like, if I lived in a communist country, I would have a certain economic system, and so I'd be bound by that system. So in the dream, I wouldn't say that the dream is necessarily unreal. It just doesn't have any way of getting to the same reality as the waking day reality.
What makes you say that it's different? Why do you think the waking reality is different than the dream reality? You're supposing that there are entities there in the waking state that aren't there in the dream state. Where's your evidence for that?
What if the entities are there?
What? Well, there could be, and you're right, there could be entities in the dream state. You get a point.
Right. And
There could be either entities in both states or no entities in either state.
because whether or not there are entities, you don't have access to them. So all you have access to is an infinite field of intelligence, an infinite field of qualities, an infinite field of meaningfulness, which presents as your experience. And it's irrelevant whether it's one or many or all of that. It's just, it's a lusciousness, it's a richness, it's a profundity And it's available. Available with absolute intimacy. It's right here.
It's kind of, in some ways, easy for me to do this kind of inquiry. In some ways, it's also kind of dysfunctional because I'm genuinely lonely. I've genuinely been single for most of my life with a few stray boyfriends.
Sure.
You know, so I have a genuine quest for intimacy that in the more like, what do you call it? What we think of as the reality of those non-meditators out there who just want simple stuff emotionally. But that's you're mixed up when you're saying that nobody has it, doesn't exist,
Right.
why even want it? You know,
Well,
so it's really
you're talking about your psychological makeup,
right.
which is a very small subsystem of your experiential field, which has its character and which can have all of these various complexities, but that doesn't encompass the actuality, the fullness of your being. It doesn't
Well,
encompass the fullness
what
of your.
are the aspects of the full being? It would be sensation, emotion, and physical.
It's all qualities. All qualities.
What are the main what are the main characteristics? For you, are all the main types like merged, or you do still have separate
It's an
types?
infinite spectrum. It's an
Oh, I
infinite
see.
continuum.
Yeah.
And everything is just variations of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like all colors are variations of the
Are
same
you
thing.
saying that?
Here, close your eyes and feel what touch is. Like rub your two fingers together or something.
Right,
Notice how it's a present of a kind of a tingling.
right.
Then open your eyes and look at the presence of light. And presence of light is a kind of a tingling too, although it's maybe a higher frequency
Right.
perhaps, but it's not qualitatively
Mhm.
different.
That's cool.
And if you look at this is very
Yeah.
what we're talking about here is really of the essence.
Yeah.
If you look at any and every look at emotion, look at
Yeah.
thought, you find exactly the same thing. They're different qualities of tingles.
Yeah,
And so all there is this incredible spectrum of tingles
yeah.
and you digging on them. And that's what reality
That's
is.
intimate.
And it looks like our circumstances, and it looks like our psychology, and it looks like our karma, and it looks like our crappy lives, and it looks like all that. But all it is a sea of tingles. And look at a dream. What do you find there? Tingles. No surprise. So all there is this ocean of tingles. And that's pretty weird, but hey, weird is what we got. So
Well, yeah, I would say weird is pretty much, yeah, when you look at this narrative of one species demolishing its food source and its future potential.
sure, whatever.
Seems
Yeah,
kind of kinky to me.
yeah, sure. Hey, anything can happen.
Yeah, right.
Manifestly. And so, and what we were just talking about, the intimacy is with the tingles. That's the intimacy.
But if there's nothing but tingles, there's nothing to be intimate with tingles. But there's also no way to measure the lack of intimacy or the presence of it.
Yeah, you can say that,
Right.
sure. And yet, it does not negate it to say there's nothing to be intimate with tingles, because the presence of tingles is intimacy.
That's right.
It doesn't need to be, because you can't find a you either. You is just the presence of tingles. And the tingles is the presence of tingles. So it's a wash, it's a unity.
Okay, I get you there. You're kind of a field guy in physics, you're not a particle guy.
No, particles are fine. You can look at the tingles and see them as individual tingles.
Individual.
But in actuality, you actually look at a field of individual tingles. So is it a field or is
Thank you.
it's two
It's
continuums in one.
oh,
I'm dating myself.
Oh, really?
Is it a candy?
Intimacy is an interesting perspective or an interesting query because to me, I feel a lot of intimacy in my interactions with people or what we call people because I take them in to me. I see them and I enjoy whatever it is that connects me, that I feel connecting or the experience I'm having of them. is something I take into myself, and that's the ultimate in intimacy.
Well, they are within you. They're within your
Exactly,
experience, so they
exactly.
couldn't be any more in
So-
you.
To me, that's the intimacy I feel with a person,
Of course,
people,
Yeah.
with anything, with an animal,
sure.
with my environment.
Yeah.
Is I take it, it's my experience, so how much more intimate can it be?
Sure. And it's an infinitely complex situation. Experiential intimacy, which is absolute, but then there's all sorts of psychological and energetic stances that can create all sorts of virtual distancings or virtual
isn't
posturings. Well, whether or not there is a moot point because it can
Right.
seem to be there. And so
Only
know,
the story.
so even though you are made of and are in absolute intimacy, you can be with that in various degrees of a virtual intimacy, even concurrently. So I mean, the whole thing is endlessly slippery and unresolvable.
Mm.
It's like our, like we touched on briefly with what we were talking about with Dana. The presence of all this enormously complex psychological whatever structures or modes or functionings that can be present in the experiential field, which are their actualities. They are what they are, and they are the way that they are. And so the complexities comes with, even though the actual the mode of the actuality, the mode of the fulfilled, may utterly transcend and render absurd the psychological complexities, it doesn't negate them. So they coexist to various degrees, So, and again, it's
It doesn't negate them, but it sort of negates the point of them in a sense.
Well, it negates the urgency of them because one inhabit the psychology,
Well-
even though the psychology is present.
Yeah, and the psychology doesn't mean anything.
Right, doesn't mean anything. So, spiritual beginners, it's easy to have a naive notion that, psychology is a problem and we transcend it, we discover, we become this transcendental being which completely transcends the psychology, and all of a sudden we're angelic or we're walking around like Jesus, we're shooting wind on our face, shooting at cards. But bada boom. But that's a fallacy because the psychology isn't negated; it's transcended by discovering that the actual field, the actuality of what you are, the actual system, is vastly beyond that. But that doesn't negate that or cancel that out. So that comes along. So it's a complex system where a lot of very different, even divergent modes can be present, and there you go. In fact, I would say that in my experience, the finer points, the sort of the high water marks of spiritual unfoldment, all have to do with how would I put this? I can't figure out
Come
how
on,
to
what
put
are you
this
trying
all
to
on.
say? Come on, spit it out.
No, it'll come to me.
Maybe it's when you don't know anything.
Huh?
When you don't know anything, it's a breakthrough.
Hell yeah. I like that.
That's the line. I'm getting there. I'm so close.
Okay, all right.
Imagine what a relief, no more responsibility for knowing anything.
That's what happened to me.
Well, I feel like I don't know anything, but I should.
It's all right. We'll get over
We'll work on that. There will be an exam.
Oh, do you know that?
That I should know something.
Well, the thing is to, what do you think you know, and then look at that and see if it's true, that's
See
all.
if you actually know anything at all.
Yeah, and also, you're thinking you should know something, it's like there's something specific that ought to be known, and then you're free, you know, but
I would say
not like that.
there is, in fact, one thing and only one thing you can know. And that is the absolute infinity of the sexuality. Or you might say the unresolvability of the sexuality. Or if you want to put it, euphemize it other ways, you can say the bottomlessness of this reality.
That's quite powerful.
And that is the concrete, objective fact that is self-verifiable. Which is a very, very sophisticated way of saying you can know that you can't know anything. But when you see it's unresolvable, you understand why you can't know anything. Because to know something, you would have to have some resolution. And however sophisticated something you know is, when you look and see what it actually is, you can't resolve it. So you can't determine whether or not you actually know it, because you can't determine what it is precisely. In other words, absolute, you could say the absoluteness of imprecision, you could call it, or to just be very vague about it, to be very fuzzy about it, you could say the absoluteness of fuzziness. Concretely know that, and that's very much what realization looks like.
You do know that.
Well, you do. You already know that. It's a matter of, because it's actually.
Recognizing it.
I mean,
Or admitting.
all of this stuff is noticing what is already the case, noticing what you will do already know. That that generally, as a result of enormous complexity, we ignore and move on to all of this the human game structure of consensus reality importances.
I've got amnesia. I don't remember anything for this.
Before? What is this before?
There's also a frustration of like, I don't know what to do, but I think I should be doing something in particular.
No, you're free to pursue that any way you can.
This one time Jeff said, "How do you know you're not already enlightened?" And I went, "I'll be damned." That was a good quote.
How do you know you're
How do you know you're not?
Really? No, that's really profound.
That's good.
Unenlightenment
Who
consists
said
of
Mr. Profundity.
The man.
Sangha. We have the presence of the man himself.
Nice guy.
I'll pile on Jeff.
Ah.
Well, I know I'm not enlightened because I've heard that it should look a certain way.
Even fed lies.
Yeah, that was just bullshit. Don't believe anything.
Like there's a particular before and after, like a loss of ego to a certain extent.
Oh, boy.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
There's plenty of that in this room.
I like my ego.
Lots of
Thank you
egos.
very much.
Hold on to your ego.
Well,
It's a construct, mental construct.
Yeah, go on.
yeah, and me, there's still a sense of doership to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
a problem.
shouldn't that break down further? Like,
There may be a sense of doership, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, sense of doership doesn't need to be negated, but look very closely at what that actually is. And it's very easy to do that. Sit somewhere where you're not doing something in particular and all of a sudden do it. So now I'm moving my hand. I wasn't moving my hand before, now I'm moving my hand. So that's doership. Now look very closely at what happens when that happens. You don't move your hand, and you're not moving your hand, and then all of a sudden move your hand and look very closely at where did that come from? How did that happen? Is this doership? When what was not present when you weren't moving your hand, it is present when you are moving your hand. Just look very closely. I mean, it's right here. So I mean, you can do it, and so you can look at it. What is it? Try and look very closely, very specifically. What is this doership? Sure, it feels like you're doing it. I mean, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to move my hand, bang, I'm moving my hand. I can move my hand, I'm going to move my hand, I'm moving my hand. So that's a given that can happen. It can look like that. It can be describable in those terms. But when that is happening, what is actually happening? What's coming from where? What's appearing from where? What's transpiring? Look, break it down, engineer it, be very precise and scientific. Look at where they come from, the way that they come, if there is a they, and if there is a coming. Look at how that happens, and you just be with that, and what's going on with that? What is that? And just look for yourself. Just do it like you're running an experiment, and just try and be as objective as you can about what is present, what is occurring. An example, or take any instance of your choice where you can feel like you're doing something, but keep it something simple, and that way it's repeatable, and that way you can look again and again at exactly what is there, and eventually it'll fall apart. I mean, you have to look and see for yourself, but eventually you'll discover that I can't say anything about any aspect of that. It can happen, and it can feel like I'm doing it, but beyond that, it's complete weird. What the fuck? Technical terms.
Happy ending.
Scientific terms.
Why don't we on that note, why don't we take our break? So online people will be back in about 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and if you're watching this video later, you might want to fast forward 10 minutes, unless you enjoy watching people wander around the room.
Babbling.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Face it out.
Oh yeah.
That's it. All right. There you go. A little more. Oh, that's good. No, that's good.
No, she wants to be in it. She wants to be in it.
No, then when you watch people going in back and forth.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Back and forth to the kitchen.
Can we do walk like an Egyptian? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the dance. The dance floor is open.
You can actually do it.
So I'm fascinated by this coffee. You put a lining on it.
Oh.
It's not a structured fabric. I made it so that there's like an elbow hole. Oh, so that you can have something. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
There's
something else.
If I lay it out, I used to say it's all on it before I made it. Just lay it out.
It's like your mic is too Oh, yeah, I remember we were talking about that, right? You were gonna try and get.
Yeah. Can't do it.
Well, maybe I'll just try and figure out how to do my laptop, and then we can set up that.
Oh, you did? From the same house? It matches.
Flavor.
It looks little scallopy things at the bottom. It's perfect. So great. And then you line the scope with the same stuff. What's the stuff? T-shirt. Yeah. And it's more or less. Yeah. But so I photographed it on my good friend, and now it's part of the artwork, so I showed where the That's what it is. You make the outfit, put the thing, make the photograph of the thing, I made it into the thing, and now the thing is about
People like the rock.
yeah, kind of leading into this, like here,
Rockin'.
That's sweet vermouth. And that's good with ice. So how's your clothes? I walked in here, like halfway through your really feel. What's that?
I have no trouble staying away from the energy. And if I can't even play,
That's why he has to chuck it around all the time. Try to get you away.
Yeah.
Because I don't think to have anything.
No.
I'll make it a total.
Alcohol in the body.
Yeah, it really is very, very easy. You know, we have a cold. It's cold in these times. A little twist of lime or lemon is good, but I'm just.
Yeah, really.
That's a good question. But I understand that it's a good point of exploration, explore the notion of intimacy.
Do you think your life is
Yes, and with everybody. In fact, I have to hold myself back sometimes, because some people don't like being direct. But to me, when I see someone and I click with them somehow, it's like, your family. Okay, so it isn't hard because of biological family, I feel
But do you know how anybody else feels?
I know how they feel to me, and that's my only experience. I don't have any other
So
way
you
to
don't
know.
have any way of knowing how they
No.
feel within yourself?
No, but they can tell me how they feel, and I can find places myself. They can be, whatever it is. But then that's another way of having to see the person.
I'm not saying I don't have any of this, I'm saying I don't. Human realm.
Well, in the story of people, we're separate, you can't. But if you don't have a story of separateness, then you have all
No, I can't describe what this is. I can't describe
That's true. That's true.
And then,
You're hired.
you stay in the shower, you don't know what normally is here. That's so weird. You stay in the shower. It's like, they comes out at you, it's water.
Oh, I totally key in
And
the shower.
it's like, oh, so I just, you know, yeah,
You know, it's good, Friday. You were just meditating. The strawberry rhubarb pie. Strawberry rhubarb pie has disappeared.
Well, you don't want to get too early.
Zing. Oh, there was a second zing. Yeah, that's true. That was the secondary. Well, that's part of unfoldment. There are.
My name is Ron. Hi, Bill, how are you? I'm good. Great, good. I've never been here before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
How do you do that?
Oh, I like it. I don't have a car, so it's hard for me to get here without.
Yeah.
Helping with friends, such as friends.
Right.
Zippy, maybe, so work for her.
Yeah, I got somebody, well, John and Irving.
Oh, those must be her shoes.
Don't they live in the East?
Yep. Maybe it's Sunnyvale. Or no, that shoe does she wear?
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, too small for me.
They used to live, as you know, at the post office.
Yeah.
Down there.
Yeah, they ran.
They're yummy.
And then they put on.
What house gone wrong?
Somebody ever time when they.
No, when they're out there, like Laurel's house.
Yeah, this is.
Do you have any idea how hard it is?
Yeah, I took a job in San Rafael once for about 4 or 5 months, and I didn't have a car, and it was enormous. Yes, to go to, I would take.
Thursday? Maybe. We were talking about having a yoga breathing presence.
Well, at nighttime it's bad.
Like,
Well, it's just last day, so we thought it might be fun just to have a lunch for the gang or whatever. Don't know,
Like someone didn't
up in the air.
you know, after.
well, we were thinking either like eating sushi and then open secret or.
And there's a bar, like, in the day. Yeah, well, we just brainstormed how to put straps in there and down where you get on guard.
Maybe sushi and open
I don't
secret,
do heels anymore.
Well, those are hardly heels. Those are-
No, those are hardly heels, but they're still heels.
What time?
At her age, I was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well,
I go for this.
okay, well, thanks anyway.
Frumpy matronly is the new hot sexy.
Especially when, you know, you live with a frumpy matronly.
Patron.
Excuse me?
Patron.
Matron.
Frumpy
Patronly.
patron.
Patronly.
I think of myself as a funky patron.
Yeah, funky
Because I
patron.
got the funk.
Yes, you are.
Beautiful
funky.
paper.
Okay, now if I was going to safari to Africa or
He's
something,
got
maybe Ow! He definitely has.
I have no idea where I got it. Might have even did. Oh, yeah, well, there you go. Good paper.
Yeah.
Got a book with no writing.
It's a sketch pad.
It's a very interesting book.
What?
Lot in it.
That book?
But even by Zen master comes it down.
Oh, but it's that.
It's actually the story of two Zen masters.
This is their exchange.
It's all in here.
I actually drank 2 big cups of it.
Oh,
So I kind of chop it out.
there you go.
Frank, do you know the shiatsu point here for coffee?
What?
Just in between here. If you massage it in a counterclockwise.
Oh, when you're ready.
Breathe all the coffee.
Whoa.
Just on one hand or both?
On either hand.
Counterclockwise.
Where is that point?
Just in the soft part.
Peter needs.
From the top or just pinch it?
I like that.
Coughs a
Yes.
lot.
Well, you can feel a muscle that goes.
Well, I feel the point. I can feel the.
Yeah, you can feel the subo.
You feel the-
From my experience
Yeah.
too.
Anti-clockwise.
It's the TSCPO.
Yeah. Oh, you're such a time delay on that.
I'll take that into
What?
advice.
One
One
where
where
it
there's all these points on the face.
Oh, is there?
It's kind of cool.
Sure.
I can feel it too. Little spots.
Yeah, there's several spots, but this one happens to be easy because you.
I used to do one here, right here,
Ooh,
for
Oh.
coughing. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah?
help a lot.
that's nice.
I have my own rubber. Right in a little V there.
Hey, kids, we're back on, kids.
Drop your bell.
Hey,
I mean, it's very beautiful, but.
Yeah. It's good, it's just not as loud as they are. That's all. They're having fun.
So any progress on the high water mark?
Huh?
The
Yeah, sure. Well, I was gonna.
Oh, that.
High water mark.
I don't know how to put it precisely. Maybe later.
Oh, come
Well,
on.
Jeff will explain it.
Yeah. That's the part.
It's feeling love towards everything.
That comes early. It's not love towards everything. It's a discovery of absolute inclusion of the totality,
Yeah.
and that you are that.
That's it.
So love towards everything is way simplistic.
Mhm.
It's actually much simpler than that and much more comprehensive than that.
So Peter, here's a question from the chat room.
Yes,
Would you entertain one?
it'll be very entertaining, I'm sure.
So she says, what were the stages of your seeing? Did you just see it and it just stayed as that continual seeing, or did it come and go? Were there stages to it?
Not so much come and go, but I could say there were stages. One stage was Jesus fucking Christ, what just happened? What is this? And that stage lasted about 24 years. And then there was the stage of, oh. And that stage is timeless, so.
I did Jesus fucking Christ, what else?
The Jesus Christ interrupted the oh.
Well, yeah, one could definitely say that, for sure. There's also some comings and goings, but comings and goings have nothing to do with realization. And that's just different energy modes being present. And the comings and goings are constant and eternal. There's nothing but comings and goings. The nature of the radiance is to be continual seemings of comings and goings.
Well, I mean, it's just the way that I sort of figured it out or experienced coming and going is what number one. I mean,
Yeah.
it couldn't be anything else.
Yeah.
And if I look at it, if I really notice that, there's just no difference
Yeah.
between the coming or, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, number one, there's no time, I mean,
All that.
sort of all that. Yeah.
It collapses. It doesn't stand up to
Yeah, it
scrutiny.
does not stand up. to
That's what I was
scrutiny.
saying about exploring any particular, anything you think. You see that it doesn't stand up.
I found that coming is much more pleasurable than.
All right.
Going pretty good too.
Finally, we're getting down to the essence.
Especially at night when you get up and have to go pee. It's really good.
Oh, you got me good.
All
All right, children.
kids. No potty talk.
No potty talk, kids.
It had to be said.
This will be a publicly accessible broadcast.
Can't see his face.
That's right, so you can get away with it. Okay, we'll give his full name out.
Actually, he said.
I mean, yeah, in terms of comings and goings and all that stuff, the big revelation is that this is about what experience is, not about what appears in experience. And that's the real big, oh wow. When you get that, wait a minute, hold the phone here. There's all this stuff that seems to be happening, but then there's experience itself. And when you get that, you might say the ground shift that occurs in that perspective is to the point.
Yeah, it's sort of like that talk we were having the other day about the medium, or the medium is, if there's anything primary, but I mean it's first, the message or the content.
Yeah.
Is one, very dependent on what
Sure.
type of energy the radiance is.
Absolutely. And as humans in the sort of consensus reality paradigm, we're very, very used to being all obsessed and bent out of shape about the content of what's happening, this is happening, that's happening, this matters, that matters. And we completely ignore and write off as a completely neutral non-event the fact of experiencing. And that's completely ass backwards.
Right.
Because the fact of experiencing is the powerful fact. That's the fact, that's where all the juice is, that's where all spirituality resides. Not in what comes and goes and whether it's this or that, whether you're succeeding or failing or healthy or sick or whatever.
Nothing comes and goes. As soon as something goes, it's something else's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
Can't get lost or whatever.
What is there to get
Well, Peter, I can come up with a few more questions, sort of critiques of your style after many years of looking at it.
I need all the help I can get.
Entertainment value here.
Wind up for the pitch here. You very commonly what it is and blah, blah. You have this kind of look screen on it that you have. And I think that sounds like a city to me, because ordinary looking isn't going to reveal any more than the crap that I've known all my life. I'm going to have to look with some kind of increased penetration if I'm going to do what you're talking about.
Right. It is a city, but in actual fact, ordinary looking is that city, because ordinary looking isn't what you think it is. Or I should say, isn't what one thinks it is. So looking itself is more than looking, and which is why looking can be transcendentally effective even if you think it's just plain old looking and you're looking for that magic special looking.
Well, I've had a few cities and I've seen a few things that, the wall, looking at it kind of been modified in some way.
Yeah, but looking is beyond looking. How does looking happen? How does seeing happen? How does experiencing happen? The notion is, this is just normal experience. It's like, yeah, what normal experience? Exactly what is that? And you get to you get to notice that Jesus Christ, what's going on? Experience itself is fucking weird. It's amazing. It's bizarre.
Yes.
And that noticing that is looking.
The old-time philosophers, such as Leibniz and Descartes, who were sitting around worried about the mind-body problem, they had seen Dharmakaya. They weren't idiots. They knew that their mind wasn't in their head, that mind was somewhere other than where's the mind? What is the mind? Why isn't it where we think it is? And that sort of thing. And it led them to monism and other kind of corrections.
Sure. But the fallacy of philosophy, classical philosophy, is that it can be expounded.
They fell on their faces.
Well, that's the point, because it's inevitable, because what this is transcendental. It cannot be resolved, so therefore it cannot be stated formulaically. It is what it is, but having said that, you've said all you can say about it.
Okay, so let's go back to this Dharmakaya problem. I mean, I've had this experience a number of times of realizing that whatever my consciousness is isn't really anywhere near as associated to my body as I might have thought it was. And yet, it sort of drifts in and out. Sometimes it's in my body, and sometimes it isn't, or whatever. And sometimes you have this city or that city, or that kind of thing. So I have this idea that crossed my mind recently, this whole consciousness problem. And this is something I just made up recently, which is that would be the number of bits that your eyeballs and your ears and your brain and your nervous system could process, whatever that is. And the number of dry bits is the number of bits that your consciousness is actually processing. That is to say, the Dharmakaya, the perception you're using right now to see the room is probably 10x what your wet bits could be perceiving.
It's Aleph X, but Aleph X. It's infinite.
Okay, so basically the dry bits, which are the spiritual consciousness that you actually have, is immensely greater than the wet bits, which is what the pokey brain and nervous system might be able to deliver if they were working at it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's viable. Which I would say, rather than breaking it down to, central nervous system versus some transcendental consciousness, I would break that down to resolvability versus unresolvability. The amount of information that could be resolved and expostulated as information is the one kind of.
You think the wet bits can be resolved? They're just as much of a mess as the dry bits.
Oh, sure. But in that case, they are infinite. As soon as something is unresolvable, it has no quantity.
They're just pretty much indefinite. They're nowhere near as definite. In fact, that's the whole problem, is that your perceptions wouldn't have anywhere near the definiteness. If it wasn't for the dry process that cleans them up and buffs them up to the form that you see them now.
Well-tempered piano.
Hmm?
And we're all just like doing a well-tempered piano.
I'm not sure I follow, but who cares?
I mean, the strings of the piano are not the actual, the tuning is changed so it works.
Yeah.
And it would be a whole different sound.
Well, this is the concrete presence of infinity that is erroneously and inaccurately describable in any arbitrary set of finite terms. So you can describe what's happening here and say it and write it down or whatever. but it doesn't accord with the actuality if you get precise.
Right.
Because infinity is always explicit. It's actually being experienced, it's being noticeably experienced. But we typically don't acknowledge that because of our, the commonplace insistence on describability. So we only acknowledge that we're experiencing what we can describe as experiencing. Oh, I'm seeing a room with people in it, and blah, 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 blah. Which may be fine in terms of general sets. But when you begin to look at the actuality, the actual information density of the field, it's a which is concrete and actual. And the other is abstract. What you can resolve and list and describe is an abstraction. The concrete actuality is unresolvable, it's infinite.
Isn't something that's infinite actually abstract?
No.
Mm.
In actuality, infinity is the only concrete. The notion of something that is not infinite is an abstraction, because the raw material that you're abstracting that from is always infinite. Because experience is an infinite unresolvability, and that's what's concrete. Period.
I disagree with that. But okay.
Oh, well, we can agree to disagree. It'd be fun to duke it out one day.
Well, it depends what you mean by it. The words you're using, so.
In fact, the concreteness itself is an abstraction.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Let's
Now on to the Middle East.
All right, boys, no fisticuffs.
Here's the fisticuffs. Don't you have fisticuffs?
The closest John and I are liable to come to get to fisticuffs is to raise our drinks at each other.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
I'll drink to that.
Yes. We'll join you.
There's another question for you.
Uh-huh.
And this is kind of like a general, Satsang type question. Some teachers are just like, I'll shock you, or whatever they have to say usually is forgettable. You can turn off the sound, and frankly, you'd be better off than you would. I'm not going to put you in one category or the other.
Good, thank you. I would say I would be slighted if I'm not in that category.
But in my experience, it's sort of like a technique. There's get a bunch of Shakti, which rearranges your energy field. Then you get some breakthroughs, which I call, which are definitive rearrangements of something or other. And then after you have enough breakthroughs, that will generally generate some samadhis. Okay. And this is like a method of doing something.
Sure.
Seems like you're doing something when you do this. Okay. It's
Sure.
pretty, pretty clear cut that something's happening. But then there's the other approach, which you seem to take, which I call the jump little doggy approach.
Jump little doggy. I like it.
Okay.
Also known as get along.
Infinity and skip all the other steps. Okay, just jump, little doggy. Hell with all the other steps.
Well, but you describe them as if they're two different things, and they're actually one and the same.
Yes.
It's like the particle wave duality. They're actually one and the same. It's not like it's a particle or it's a wave. It can look like a particle, it can look like a wave. It can look like accumulating a bunch of Shakti and having samadhis, or it can look like jump.
You can look like Lama, now I see it, now I don't, or whatever. Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. So,
Whatever. But ultimately, it's about Shakti because, the jumping is to the actuality that is present, which is what the word Shakti refers to, what I call the radiance.
Well, the word Shakti means power in Hindu. You could have it's like Shakti in their name, which may or may not be a joke, I'm not sure.
Well, the energy that they're generating is nothing other than pure radiance, so we're still in complete agreement.
So it is what they're generating. It's coming out of that socket.
That's right.
Well, it's easier to you feel like you're doing something when you get some Shakti, you get some breakthroughs, and you get some samadhis. Whereas if you're sitting around saying jump little doggy, it's just frustrating because you never seem to get across the little barrier.
This is jump.
It's just it's a ticket to, becoming depressed. Well, I tried to jump and I wasn't able to do it, so it's another day of failure.
Check out these.
That's just
I
a
don't know, I mean, I like
misunderstanding.
that.
That's just a
I
misunderstanding.
don't really,
Actually, well, I don't think it's either or, but it's definitely something like grace
Sure.
that, somehow just, there's some kind of shift.
Yeah.
It could be like an earthquake shift, or it could be just a very minor
subtle.
Yeah,
But
noticing
something
is
happens.
grace. Noticing is the presence of transcendence. And the way I would put it is the noticing of the presence of transcendence, because transcendence is always present.
Right, yeah.
And so that noticing is, of course, grace, because the transcendent is by its very nature grace.
Yeah.
And so, and that it could be said to be a jump, if
Right.
you want.
So, I
But
mean,
that's all just,
I
euphemizing.
sort of can see what Frank is saying. If it hasn't happened, yet, maybe it'll happen later,
Well,
but
it's always happening. It's just a matter of
noticing.
developing the sensitivity, the knack, to notice. And which isn't mechanistic. You can't just do it. You can't do it because you decide to do it. You can't go out on the sidewalk. Maybe you can. I've never been able to go out on the sidewalk and take 10 random people and show them how to do this and have it actually take.
Right.
It seems to require a certain readiness or a certain, ripeness or I don't know what.
Yeah, and again, I've seen people, I haven't been that many other spiritual groups, but, I've seen people sort of come and go even in here that I'm pretty positive it hasn't happened to them. But they keep on coming and they keep on listening, and it probably will.
Well, if you're listening to this stuff and you're interested with any persistence, then that indicates that there's probably some intuition, there's something going on,
Right.
regardless of the degree of explicitness of the way in which it's being engaged with or acknowledged.
but even if it's an earthquake or a jump little doggy moment, like, it might happen in a millisecond, but it's still going there and being willing to go there. I don't know, that's what happened with me. It was this weird suddenly thing, but if I really think about it, I kind of went, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And
You do have to follow it.
Yeah, I kind of just followed it all the way down. It was like, fuck.
But
So it might be that, but
you have to stumble onto that. You
Yeah,
can't mechanistically say,
just did itself.
follow this assembly line of steps and this will happen.
No, but you know what? That's why I think the jump little doggy suggestion is a good one.
It's a book title.
That's right. It's a new
Would
one.
you license me that
Okay.
book title?
Okay.
It's all on the video.
The reason I think that that's not such a bad suggestion is because you do have to do the jumping. No one else can do it for you. No one else can hand it to you. When you have, when you find yourself in a sense of query, of asking, of exploring, this might have the grace to stumble upon that moment where you go, oh shit,
Sure.
and
My
bubbles
problem.
from underneath the dog.
But you have to jump. You have to jump. If you don't jump,
This
you're
is-
never gonna get over the fence.
This is why I like the notion of noticing, because noticing
Noticing.
can be taken as an activity of something you do, or it can be taken as a receptivity of grace, so to speak.
In Dzogchen, what would the term be for, or maybe more than one
Stop
term
kicking that little dog.
for noticing?
Rigpa. Rigpa.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's an appalling word to try and translate. It's usually translated as awareness, which misses the point entirely.
Right.
What Rigpa really refers to is the spontaneous presence of experiencing, which of course is always the case.
Not unobstructed experiencing.
Which is always the case. There's never obstructed, if obstructed experiencing were to occur, it would occur in the presence of unobstructed experiencing, or else how would it be present?
There's no such thing as
So the
obstruction.
purpose of the word is to notice it.
Yeah. The purpose of the word is to have a word to refer to this fundamental condition of consciousness, if you will.
Yeah.
And noticing that fundamental condition, you're noticing your own base state, which completely transcends what is being noticed in terms of this event or that event.
Yeah.
In other words, you could say it's what witnessing is, only not witnessing as some passive thing you're pretending to do, but the actual fact of the spontaneous presence of experiencing.
Thanks, I had no idea what that meant.
No one does. That's what they keep me around
I
for.
mean, if there was a bird for, form of awareness, I mean, that'd be closer. A verb? A bird. Awaring.
Aware.
Bird.
Noticing.
Noticing, no, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Peter, since you're like the master of all these recondite Tibetan and Sanskrit terminology, did you see that posting?
I don't remember those terms specifically, so I can't really comment on them.
Oh,
Well, Rang is used by this author to natural. Rang Dang is a natural display. And Rang Rig is the natural awareness that's seeing the natural display.
Sure. It's like what I call radiant presence.
I thought those terms were very clever and poetic. They had kind of a wacky sound to them.
Well, it does, I mean,
Definitely.
rang dang, rang ring, rang-a-lang-a-ding dong. Sounds like a 50s swing rock song.
Yes, yes.
Holy Buddha.
Oh, yeah, Lord Buddha, yeah, sorry.
Let's not be disrespectful here.
Oh, we're just talking about grace, but could we talk about a certain preparedness to receive grace?
Sure.
Or because
Well, that's just more grace.
but it seems to me like in the past I've worked with a teacher, or it seemed like I got into these very expanded states of consciousness, but like I couldn't hold it for many hours afterwards.
Uh-huh.
And so there's what we could call a certain development of the energetic body that's able to hold that
No,
level of oxygen.
that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
What's important is to notice that just is always unavoidably the case. That's the important state, not some state you need to achieve and hold. And this is the presence of spontaneous transcendental experiencing itself, which of course has always been the case. It's how you know you exist. It's how your world appears. And that doesn't need to be held. On the contrary, it can't be stopped. You can't get rid of it if you wanted to.
Okay, so
And that is the important state or condition. And grace consists of the maturity or sensitivity to be able to notice and appreciate that.
So it's not like I'm not strong enough to hold it. It's like I get tired, and then I sort of.
It's
yeah.
well, you're aiming at the wrong thing. You're trying to hold something, and nothing is holdable because all qualities of experience come and go spontaneously. But that's unimportant because experience itself doesn't come and go, and that's the important fact. What comes and goes is of no importance. It's of no importance if it comes, and it's of no importance if it goes. But what is inalienably the case, the presence of experiencing, is what counts, and you don't need to hold that because again, you couldn't stop that if you wanted to.
So it's happening and I don't realize it.
Well, you do realize it. You just don't give it any importance. That's what all this spirituality stuff is all about. Right now, there's the presence of experiencing, right? Well, that's it. That's what all the fuss is about. That's what all of this rigmarole is just about that. And about that there's nothing but that. And all of this subcategories of that based on what seems to be appearing in special states and this and that and the other is a lot of hogwash of ramifications of the base condition, which is what's already here. What is here now and always, what's always been here and always will be here, namely the presence of your experience. And grace is all about finding unaccountably or accountably the sensitivity to somehow leap to an appreciation of that. To appreciate, to jump to some degree of appreciation of the ramifications of that, of the potency of that. Because ordinarily we write that off. It's like, the presence of experiencing is like a perfectly clear window that we're seeing the events of our being through, and we're very interested in what we're seeing through the window, but we ignore the window. Who gives a shit? It's just a perfectly clear window that's here. But unbeknownst to us, it's actually like a TV, and the only thing that's here is the perfectly clear window. What seems to be appearing is just a ramification of that window. So the window is actually the potent thing. The window is actually what you are and what's doing all of this. Being able to notice that, being able to stumble on some degree of appreciation of that is the nature of grace. You've no doubt heard my catchphrase, radiant presence. The presence is the window, and the radiance is the fact that it always is like a TV show. It's always looking like something. All of this stuff that seems to be happening. And which only happens within the presence. You don't find any of this stuff happening independently. It only happens within the presence. The presence of experience is the actuality, and its nature is to show up like all of this. But all of this is nothing other than it, which is completely opposite of the normal consensus reality human worldview, where we suppose that the presence of experience is a small biochemical activity in my brain, which is a byproduct of all this enormous physical activity, which is what's really happening. And so it's completely backwards. Just about precisely 180 degrees opposite. And Frank.
Peter, isn't the term radiant presence a $15 word for Shakti?
Yes. Sure.
Shakti is a $25 word for presence.
Yes, $25 word for radiant presence.
Because it's a
I like radiant presence because it breaks it down into the noun and the verb by implication, and also it's devoid of all of the the spiritual and Hindu mystification of hundreds, thousands of years of spiritual traditions and blah, blah, blah.
That was like
Luggage or the
fresh,
baggage.
fresh coinage or some sort.
It's arbitrary. I mean, it's just another catchphrase. It doesn't mean anything in itself. And it's a useful term if it's useful, like all terms.
I don't mind it, but I'm just thinking, I'm wondering, radiant presence. What is it?
Go with Shakti if
Take
you
it
like.
apart.
it.
Go with Shakti then, yeah.
Presence is obvious, right? Look at what's present. Experience is present. You can't find anything other than experience that's present, right? And the presence of experience is the presence of anything, because anything that's present is present because experience is present. So that's presence. And radiance is simply the fact that it looks like all sorts of shit. It looks like all these colors and sounds and thoughts and moods and emotions and whatever it looks like. But none of that looks like, none of that presentation would occur if the presence of experience wasn't here. So the presence of experience is the prime condition, the raw condition, the prime requisite, you might say, the ground zero for radiance to occur. And radiance appears because of the presence. I mean, they coexist. You know, to talk about them as if they're two things is absurd, because the presence is always radiant, and the radiant is always of presence. And you can't find radiance without presence, and you can't find presence without radiance. God never shows up naked.
Well, they talk about how the awareness is supposed to be naked, but anyway. The radiant presence to me is like the fizzing of a Coke can or whatever. It's just endless fizzing.
Yeah, exactly so. It's endless fizzing. It's a good, nice way to think of it.
Good. I like that.
I don't have that problem because
Fizzing.
I have that endless fizzing all the time anyway, whether I want it or not.
Exactly. Everyone does. That's all there is. And this fizzing is what we got.
What we think we're from. The rest of the
Well, the riddle of consciousness, if there is one, is how can all these perceptions be unified into anything? How is it that we think we see, unified stuff, when in fact that's like a massive task. If you had to take all these photons and put them together, God, how the hell would you do it? I mean, it's like incredible to assemble consciousness into something. Which is why it requires consciousness to do it. The dry bits. The dry bits are what can do that, not the wet bits.
It's the same thing though. Sorry. The dry bits and the wet bits are the same thing. They're made of the same shit, man. That's all right. All right. The dry bits are experiencing all this crazy shit, and the wet bits are trying to experience this crazy shit, and they're getting really freaked out trying to do it. And that's it. It's so great. That's the thing. It's just one thing. There's a thing shown up to another thing. That's the radiant presence. The wet bits and the dry bits. You got it.
What could be simpler?
I'm sorry. That's all right. That was good.
Yeah.
Bits, the dry bits.
I made that term up. That's actually a fairly interesting advance in the theory of consciousness. Relative to where everybody else is at, which is generally nowhere, to separate the wet and dry. Although she was like telling me I was an asshole, but I still think it's progress.
This is such a loose group, I love it.
Lucy, Lucy.
Do you have any idea how much subtle hierarchy I have to put up with on the other side of the bay? Just to get get some nourishment spiritually. I've given up on the overt hierarchy, but it's, everybody's got some kind of a trip
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
being a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a desert out there.
Yes.
Just turn the sound
But it's
out.
so much
Just go
fun.
for the sound. Turn the sound out, you can do pretty much better, just wear earplugs or whatever. So,
Oh, no, it's all very entertaining.
It's kind of fascinating to just watching the camera view of you and the 3D view of you. Listening how what I'm seeing is not really all there is to see. It's like you get two really completely different views. Even like your expression seems really different on both.
Or watch what you're seeing in your you know, you look at any two portions of experience and they're actually versions of the same field, but they present with such a, such radically, fundamentally different, sort of affect.
So is there the same amount of fizzing going on no matter where I look or who I interact with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fizzing is constant, but the variability of apparent density and apparent, you can kind of make up qualities. It has no inherent qualities, so trying to describe it, even density isn't really density. But what I mean is there's an inconceivably broad range of the ways that it can seem to be in terms of coarseness and subtlety and densities and whatever. And, you can imagine parameters. Yes, fundamentally the answer is yes, always exactly the same amount of business. You can think of it in terms of information. The field of experience is always completely full of information. And the information can present itself with an infinitely broad range of grossness and subtlety. So for example, when your eyes are closed and you're going to sleep, or let's say you're under general anesthesia and your experience is pretty close to nothing, in actuality, the amount of information present is exactly the same as the amount of information when you're waking on a busy street and cars are streaming by with their horns honking and people are yelling and screaming. It's just different degrees of density and different degrees of, but there's no difference in quantity.
But for instance, like in this room now talking to, there's more noticing of the fizziness or the amount of
There might be,
information.
but noticing the fizziness is not a particularly important kind of fizziness. Fizziness doesn't need to be noticed to be present. The presence of fizziness is powerful, not the noticing of fizziness. It's all very paradoxical. The noticing allows you to appreciate it and enjoy it, but nothing's actually gained by that. It's like people that are really interested in stamps can read a lot about stamps and become experts in stamps, but they haven't actually gained anything by doing that. It's just a quirk of their nature that they happen to be interested in that. So you can be interested in noticing the nature of radiant presence and discover it and become enlightened and realize and all that. But all you're doing is taking advantage of a possibility that doesn't actually improve or change your condition one tiny bit. Because noticing the fizziness doesn't change the fizziness at all. And not noticing it doesn't diminish it at all. So the only point of being into this stuff is if you happen to be a person that happens to be motivated to be into this stuff for unfathomable reasons.
So it's sort of a creepy hobby, like.
Yeah, it's a creepy hobby. a bunch of fucking weirdos, a bunch of fucking nerds. That's a good way to sum it up, actually.
It's a very creepy hobby.
Well, there's all this, a lot of realms, and there's all this emphasis on consciousness, you know, and what the consciousness of something somehow matters. I mean, it's all there, and it just flow between one thing and another, one aspect and another.
What this is always the same. You know, being a realized being is not an improved or changed condition from being a total cause. They're exactly the same condition. Nothing. It's not an improvement. It's not better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just taking advantage of the fine print.
Too.
It's just like taking advantage of the fine print. It's possible. There's a loophole that it is possible for this to notice itself with interesting ramifications. And those that are interested can take advantage of that possibility if they have the wherewithal to do so. And that's all. But nothing is actually achieved or gained by doing that. And then you'd be able to play piano, but like, so what? Then you'd be able to play piano, which is cool if you want to play piano. But if you don't, who gives a shit? A person who doesn't play piano is no worse off than a person who can play piano. And it's only relevant to the person who can play piano because they wanted to. And it happens that, well, if you want to, you can. And it's the same with noticing all this stuff.
It's still a creepy hobby.
Well, no argument.
Well, it's sort of an interesting hobby in that noticing that doesn't matter has this interesting effect on whatever else you experience. None of it will get in your way.
Not mattering turns out to be a very powerful quantity.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that realizing doesn't matter also transfers the other way, that not realizing doesn't matter, which is where liberation comes from. When you realize that being ignorant is not an impediment, then all of a sudden you're free. Because our thing is essentially self-deprecation. And when you get conclusively that there is no basis for self-deprecation, suffering stops. Because you get conclusively that there's no better or worse condition. There's no superior or inferior state or mode of functioning. And when you get that, fuck it. You know, all bets go where you go, and it's all good. You know, we suffer because we come down on ourselves, basically. And when you discover conclusively there's no basis for doing so, then that whole thing is short-circuited.
Well, the basis for doing so is the imagination.
Well, of course, it's fantasy. But then if you fantasize anything you want, why not fantasize something that feels good? Why fantasize coming down on yourself?
Well, waking up is basically boils down to wisdom. Really seeing what's here and not, and having the sense to acknowledge it.
Not here.
Right, and that's wisdom too. I mean, I can see someone
Hell
who's
yeah.
not at all interested in this creepy hobby, but who is wise enough to not give themselves a hard time, or is wise enough to say, you know, people are who they are, and
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah.
All right.
And all those people
All right.
are meeting two
You
houses
don't
down.
have to have a creepy hobby. You have any creepy hobby you like. So long as you don't force it on anyone else.
Well, let's be very clear. Characterizing it as a creepy hobby is creepy.
Uh-oh. I don't know. I think damn collecting is pretty weird.
Well, see, there you go.
It is creepy. What about jump, little doggy?
That's what nice video game. But it seems like it's also, it's not like a wisdom that's you, like
No.
you,
No.
like in the
No.
traditional you sense. It's just this out there, it's the stuff. It's
Yeah.
the stuff of the stuff, right?
It's what we
not-
got.
Yeah.
Well, it's like temperament, it's not something,
that decides, oh.
but it's like temperament. The temperament you have is just that, it's just what's present, so.
Enlightenment is what's present.
Oh shit.
What a title.
What's for dinner?
Nah, that's boring, that's boring.
Bumper sticker.
Nah,
Not a very good bumper sticker.
no,
But
I like the hokey pokey.
Yeah, I like that one.
Hokey pokey is what it's all about?
Does, and it is.
It is.
As we've seen,
As we have learned today.
it's all about the hokey pokey.
oh my God.
Tell me it isn't.
Oh, much
Prove it to me. How's that, the hokey pokey? It's the only bumper sticker we'll put on anything. You know, you see all these bumper stickers with random acts of kindness or whatever, right? And I go, yeah, but if you know that it's all about the hokey pokey, the kindness comes in all by itself. You don't need to try.
There's no like spirituality, fuck yeah, bumper sticker like that.
That's right.
That's
Well, yeah, spiritual. You can see how big that one got over.
I'll buy it.
It's been an interesting
Last champ is high water marks.
The what?
High water marks.
Well, we already have. It's snug in there.
What did I miss? Water what?
High water.
Oh, the high water mark. Did you resolve?
It's already been part of the conversation.
I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Conversation, but no resolution.
It wasn't pointed out as such.
Okay, I've got something that's not related to this high water, whatever.
All right.
So I had this experience, and everything was very unusual and very exciting. And then there's this kind of mellowing out and further investigation and unpacking and blah, blah, blah. And then it seems like there's this really weird thing, which is still kind of tending to get sucked back into this other craziness of, I don't know if you want to call it the former way of thinking, or outlook, or personality crisis. Like, I don't know, but it's interesting.
With your unerring, enlightened intuition, you've hit exactly on what I was talking about with the high water mark. One discovers, and we talked about it obliquely in the course of the last conversation, in the last 15 minutes, that one discovers that normalcy, any mode of normalcy is inconceivably special, and any mode of specialness is inconceivably normal, and they're all one and the same. So the first 3/4 of one's spiritual career, or one's spiritual enactment, one is really engaged with trying to get out of the mundane and the normal and one's personality and one's shitty life and blah, 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 and fight one's way to, this astounding vision of the transcendental amazingness.
Yeah.
But then the final the final little, last little gasp of it is letting go of all that and drifting back into your pathetic, neurotic mind. A sigh and a giggle. And
That's what we have to work
and
on.
absolutely, yeah, and absolutely completely resolving any duality whatsoever between the absolutely transcendental, spiritual, divine, and any pathetic normalcy of any kind whatsoever. But you can't get there until you get to come back to that. Unfortunately, it's like you get back to where you started, but with a smile on your face and a
That's
twinkle
right.
in your eye.
You see all the mountains there, there's the mountains
Yeah.
down and the mountains back.
The height. Another way to put that is the height of liberation is not needing to be liberated
Ah, yes.
in the most powerful, comprehensive sense. But
Wonderful.
it's totally wonderful. That's what
Yes, it
true
is.
liberation
It
is.
really is.
Is being liberated from needing to be liberated.
It liberates you to just be.
Yeah, just
Be
like fuck it.
yourself.
Fuck it.
Be.
Fuck it is the ultimate mantra.
Fuck it.
There it is. Yeah,
Fuck
that's
it.
fuck it.
Fuck
I
that
that
shit.
was from like long ago. You brought
Yeah.
it back just for me. That was really good. Yeah, fuck it is the highest mantra. Actually, fuck it is the highest mantra that brought me all the way. It really
We're all
is.
fucked.
Goes the
Fuck
distance.
it.
It really is the highest mantra.
It
Fuck
really
it.
is. No, it's true. I guess. You're
True,
right.
it's a joke, but it's also deadly serious.
It's true.
Deadly serious.
No, it's good though. It's yeah, because I'm getting to this feeling where it's like sometimes now I'm allowed to just play the game and
Sure.
be some weird thing, and
Fuck
I'm
it,
also
who
allowed to
cares?
just be this neurotic like little thing, and that's all part of it, right? Like that's fine.
Sure. Or if you're like this amazing transcendental goddess, and then and then you're pissed off at somebody, and you want to get drunk or something.
Whatever.
Whatever's the polite way of saying fuck it.
Not so polite.
Not so polite. Depends on what crowd you hang out with. Whatever.
Whatever.
There you go. It's the Valley Girl version, is
Yeah.
it? It's equal to the fucking.
Put them together.
It's the Valley Girls.
Whatever. Fuck it.
Whatever.
The Valley Girl School of Enlightened Realization.
Man.
Complete with the mudras to go with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Ah,
Then come up with
the most
mudras.
sacred mudras.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I like
And on that note, I will
Adios.
bring this to a close.